joining me on the Listen Up Girl podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. Today is Tuesday, September the 2nd, and Labor Day weekend is unfortunately over, and we're all back to work for those who listen to this show in America. My first story is that a study finds 2.8 million Americans identify as transgender. So let's start with some important new data about the transgender community. It's a brand new report from the Williams Institute at UCLA's School of Law estimates that roughly 2.8 million Americans aged 13 and older identify as transgender. That works out to be about 1% of the population in that age group. The study also shows just how young the community is. More than just 75% of transgender people are under the age of 35, compared to only about a third of a general population. At the state level, Minnesota ranks highest for transgender adults, with 1.2% of people over 18 identifying as trans. Meanwhile, Hawaii leads the nation for trans youth with 3.6 of those between 13 and 17 identifying as transgender. The findings shed light on both the size and the demographics of this growing community and why protections and visibility remain so important. Now to politics out of Indiana, where Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith is drawing attention for comments that many are calling extreme. Beckwith, who is a Republican and self-described Christian nationalist, said publicly that the United States is and always has been a Christian nation. In a recent social media post, he dismissed the concept of separation of church and state as, quote, a dangerous falsehood designed to dismantle America's moral foundation. He argued that the phrase has been twisted to strip Christian values from public life. Critics say these comments reflect a larger movement on the far right to blur or even the line between church and state, which has long been a cornerstone of American democracy. And he's like a Christian nation, but what about all the Jewish people? What about the Muslims? What about all the other religions that don't fall under a Christian nation? Do they just don't exist or they should go away? What about atheists and people who don't believe in any of this silly fairy tales? What about them? Next, Charlie Kirk's sexist rant about Taylor Swift's engagement. He is a piece of work, I'll just start out by saying. And of course, Taylor Swift can't make headlines without the far right having something to say. Anti-LGBTQ plus MAGA influencer Charlie Kirk went on a sexist rant about her engagement to Kansas City Chiefs star Travis. On his Real America's Voice show, Kirk said he hoped marriage would make Swift more conservative and less empowered. He even called it something to celebrate, adding his so-called 3 M's, mortgage, marriage, and mating, as the things that supposedly make someone a better citizen. Kirk's comments have sparked backlash with fans and critics alike, calling them misogynistic and dismissive of women's independence. For many observers, it's another example of how Swift's cultural power has made her a lightning rod for political attacks. And let me just tell you something about Charlie Kirk. If you have ever watched any of his videos, and this is my opinion only, but I think there's something that he's hiding. He seems a little fruity to me. And the way he smiles and the way he's always so against it. And the other thing, he's talking about Taylor Swift, mortgage, marriage, and mating. She could buy Travis Kelce 25,000 more houses than he could ever afford. So she's wearing the pants in that relationship, just so you know. Next, Trump administration cancels minority-focused grants. In Washington, the Trump administration has eliminated 195 federal grants, which many were aimed at supporting racial and sexual minority groups. According to the New York Post, the list includes a $5.5 million grant from the National Cancer Institute to Vanderbilt University Medical Center and for its Vanderbilt First program, which focused on hiring underrepresented faculty. Officials argued that grants are too narrowly focused but critics say this is a deliberate attempt to roll back diversity initiatives in medicine and academia. Some of these awards had already been partially paid and were meant to last years, making the cancellations especially disruptive. The decision has already led to at least one high-profile resignation and has sparked outrage among the public. Meanwhile, at the Vatican, Pope Leo XIV is sending a clear message that LGBTQ Catholics are welcome in the church. Just days before a planned pilgrimage of LGBTQ Catholics to Rome, Pope Leo met with advocate Reverend James Martin. According to Martin, the Pope told him he intends to continue the politics of inclusion begun by Pope Francis. Martin described the meeting as consoling, encouraging, and even fun. For LGBTQ Catholics, this moment is being seen as a powerful sign that the church is committed to keeping its doors open despite resistance from the conservative factions within Catholicism. That was reported by the Associated Press. Next in sports, we have former professional tennis player Brian Vahaly, who came out after retiring, is speaking candidly about why so few male tennis players have followed his path. He says that the fear of losing sponsors, combined with the fact that the men's tour travels to countries where being gay is still criminalized, keeps many athletes from coming out. He noted that younger generations view inclusion very differently, and he's hopeful that over time more players will feel safe enough to live openly. But for now, he says tennis has a long way to go before it truly welcomes LGBTQ athletes. Why do conservatives keep linking mass shootings to trans identity? Following the tragic Catholic Church shooting, right-wing media outlets have once again tried to falsely link the suspect to being transgender. In this case, they pointed to an old name change petition filed by Robin Westman, even though there's no evidence that Westman identified as trans. According to journalist Adam Rhodes, this has become a common tactic, using mass shootings to push transphobic agenda, painting transgender people as dangerous, and distracting from the root cause of gun violence. Critics warn that these baseless narratives only increase stigma while doing nothing to address America's ongoing gun crisis. And if you look at a lot of these shooters in America, they are nearly almost all white, straight men that live in some backwoods-ass place. So maybe we should be looking at what's wrong with the mental health in those areas that these people come from. That's probably a better use of time and money and resources instead of trying to blame it on transgender people, which are only 1% of the entire population. Next, we have Colman Domingo responds to backlash over drag role. Over in the world of music videos, actor Colman Domingo is proving once again that he can handle criticism with humor and style. Domingo appears in drag in Sabrina Carpenter's latest video for her disco-inspired single Tears, a performance praised by fans but criticized by conservative commentators online. One viewer called the role bullshit, but Domingo brushed it off, telling critics to calm down and reminding them it's a character, enjoy the fun, it ain't that deep. He even quoted RuPaul saying, "We're all born naked and the rest is drag." For LGBTQ fans, his response was a reminder to celebrate joy, camp, and creativity, no matter what the haters say. Next, Zoe Kravitz and Austin Butler are promoting their new film, Caught Stealing. And in a recent interview, they shared what they loved and what they didn't about the 1990s culture. Kravitz said she's nostalgic for the music, the fashion, the life without cell phones. But one thing she says should stay in the past, the constant homophobic jokes on mainstream television. She pointed specifically to Friends, saying that so many casual punchlines were based on homophobic jokes and just wouldn't fly today. Butler was surprised, saying, "Wow, even in Friends?" And Kravitz replies, "Oh, so much in Friends. It's wild." Their comments shine a light on just how much media has evolved and how much more inclusive storytelling is needed. And that was reported by People magazine. My last story is about Greg Louganis. For those of you who don't know, he was an Olympic diver, and he is relocating to Panama. It's a personal update from the Olympic legend Greg Louganis. The diving icon, now 65 years old, announced in a heartfelt Facebook post that he's relocating to Panama. Louganis reflected on aging, personal reinvention, and things he's leaving behind. He also revealed that he had auctioned off 3 of his Olympic medals, admitting candidly that he needed the money. He said he's grateful for what those medals represented, but he's ready to move into a new chapter of life. Fans have been flooding his page with support, praising him for his honesty and resilience, qualities that made him a hero in and out of the pool. So good luck to you, Greg, in Panama. And that is my news for the LGBTQ plus community on Tuesday, September 2nd. Be sure to tune in on Friday for more LGBTQ plus news, and have a wonderful week. And for my American U.S. listeners, have a good week back after the Labor Day weekend. Thanks for listening.